Imagine yourself on a Halloween night, surrounded by the darkness and mystery of an abandoned mansion. 5 friends decide to challenge the unknown, laughing and telling ghost stories as they walk down a moss-covered stone path. But as the music starts to play, the atmosphere shifts, and what was supposed to be a fun adventure begins to take a frightening turn. Have you ever felt that chill down your spine, like someone's watching you? If you enjoy stories that mix friendship and terror on a night that promises to be unforgettable, this video is for you. Let's explore what lurks in the shadows of this mansion and uncover the terrifying secrets it holds. Would you have the courage to face what these friends are about to discover? Stay with us to unravel this spine-chilling mystery.
Behind the doors.
Halloween night in Willow Creek was shrouded in an atmosphere of mystery and anticipation. The full moon cast a silvery glow over the old abandoned mansion, its broken windows resembling empty eyes watching as the 5 friends arrived. Jake, Emily, Lucas, Sarah, and Mark laughed and shared ghost stories as they walked along the moss-covered stone path leading to the house's entrance. The wind blew gently, bringing with it a chill that made everyone's skin prickle. "Just imagine, a haunted house, and here we are, ready to face the unknown," exclaimed Jake, his infectious grin brightening the eerie surroundings. "I just hope we don't run into any real ghosts," replied Emily, her voice slightly trembling, soon covered by laughter. "Oh, come on, it's going to be fun. Just like the stories we used to hear when we were kids," said Lucas excitedly. "I bet the only things we'll find here are cobwebs and rats. And maybe some lost souls," Mark joked, winking at Sarah, who rolled her eyes but couldn't help but smile. As they reached the mansion's door, a wave of nostalgia washed over the group. They had spent many summer afternoons playing there, even as the house began to show signs of neglect. Jake pushed the door, which creaked dramatically, and they all entered together, the moonlight illuminating the dusty foyer. "Wow, look at this. I've never seen this room so full of stuff," said Sarah, exploring the dusty shelves and forgotten objects. "It's like time stopped here. And I bet there's more upstairs," added Lucas, pointing to the spiral staircase leading to the upper floor. "Let's explore." But before they could disperse, Jake spotted something peculiar in a corner of the room, a dust-covered record player. He approached it, curiosity gleaming in his eyes. "Look at this. A record player. Let's play something." "Jake, that thing looks way too old to work," Emily cautioned. But Jake's excitement was contagious. "What if it's a haunted song?" Mark teased, doing his best ghost impression. "Only if you stop talking and help me get this thing going," Jake replied, already winding up the record player. With a slight crackle, the device began to turn, and a soft, hypnotic melody started to echo through the room, filling the air with a peculiar feeling. As soon as the music began, a strange sensation enveloped the group. The once cozy atmosphere now had an air of mystery. However, their laughter soon returned, drowning out any unease. "What a weird sound," said Sarah, shaking her head. "But it's cool." "It's almost like the house is calling to us," commented Lucas, glancing around as a shiver ran down his spine. "Oh, it's just your imagination," Jake laughed. "Let's dance." The group started to move lightly to the music, but as the melody intensified, the atmosphere seemed to shift. The laughter soon turned into nervous giggles, and the fun was slowly replaced by a sense of unease. "Do you guys feel that? It's like something is watching us," Emily said, breaking the lighthearted mood. "Oh, come on. It's just the music," Jake insisted, but it was too late. The laughter faded, and the feeling of being watched grew with every note. "I don't know, Jake. This is starting to feel a little strange," admitted Mark, glancing around as if expecting to see something in the shadows. "Let's just enjoy ourselves a little longer. What could happen?" Jake said, trying to lift the group's spirits, but the heavy air around them seemed to warn that something was about to change. And without them knowing, the melody echoing through the mansion was about to set off events that would turn this Halloween night into a nightmare. As the music echoed through the dusty corridors of the mansion, Lucas felt a knot forming in his stomach. The melody seemed to resonate not just in his ears, but in his mind, breaking through his defenses and invading his thoughts. He looked at his friends who were dancing and laughing, oblivious to the growing oppression he felt. "Hey guys, I need some fresh air," Lucas said, trying to hide the unease in his voice. Emily, with a radiant smile, responded, "You can't leave now. The party's just getting started." "Just a moment," Lucas insisted, already heading for the door. "I need to get away from this music." He stepped outside, closing the door behind him, and took a deep breath. The cold night air was a relief, but the feeling of being watched followed him. Lucas looked at the mansion's windows, and a shiver ran down his spine as he noticed indistinct shadows moving behind the curtains, as if invisible figures were watching him. He shook his head, trying to dismiss the thought. "It's just your imagination," he thought, but the unease only grew. Inside the mansion, Sarah stopped dancing and looked down the dark hallway leading to the back of the house. A vision struck her like lightning. She saw a young woman dressed in white, dancing alone under the faint light filtering through a broken window. The figure seemed lost in her own dance, her movements ethereal and graceful. "Jake!" Sarah called out, not taking her eyes off the apparition. "Look!" Jake, who had been in the middle of a joke, stopped and turned around. His expression changed from joy to confusion as he saw the intense look on Sarah's face. "What is it? What do you see?" "The woman. She's dancing." Sarah pointed, but the figure had already begun to fade like smoke in the wind. "You must be seeing things. It's just an old house," Jake said, trying to laugh off the situation, but unease was growing inside him. "No, Jake, I'm serious. She was here," Sarah insisted, her voice trembling with emotion. Emily, sensing the tension in the air, joined them. "What's going on? What did you see, Sarah?" "A woman, dancing." "She looked sad, like she was trapped here," Sarah replied, her voice low and frightened. Before they could discuss it further, a noise echoed through the house, a creak that seemed to come from the upper floor. "What was that?" Mark asked, his gaze fixed on the staircase leading upstairs. "Let's check it out," Jake suggested, already heading for the stairs. "It's probably just the wind." The group hesitated, but curiosity overcame fear, and they followed Jake, climbing the creaking steps under their feet. The upstairs hallway was shrouded in shadows, and the cold seemed to intensify with each step. "Lucas!" Mark called out, but the only response he got was the echo of his own voice. The feeling that something was wrong intensified, but they continued to explore. What had happened to Lucas? Why did the mansion seem so alive yet so dead at the same time? The answer hung in the air, but they didn't know that the real terror was yet to come. The atmosphere in the mansion was dense and filled with tension. The echo of Emily and Mark's desperate cries for Lucas filled the air, their voices reverberating against the old walls. The sound of their own calls seemed to mock them, amplifying the sense of despair and helplessness. "Lucas, where are you?" Mark shouted, his heart pounding in his chest. He moved quickly down the dark corridor, feeling as though he was being watched. The mansion's cold seemed to seep into his bones, and he couldn't ignore the feeling that something was terribly wrong. "He has to be here somewhere," Emily said, trying to stay calm. "Let's check upstairs." The two friends climbed the creaking stairs, the steps protesting under their weight. Each step seemed to echo like a warning, a reminder that the mansion was not just an abandoned place, but a repository of dark secrets. As they reached the second floor, darkness enveloped them like a shroud, and the only light they had came from a flickering flashlight Emily held shakily. "Lucas," she called again, but the only response was the oppressive silence. The air was thick and a sense of panic began to creep into their mind. "We need to split up. Maybe he went into one of the rooms," Mark suggested hesitantly. "I'll go to the left and you go to the right. Let's meet back in the main hallway." Emily nodded, still unsure about the idea. "Be careful, Mark. Don't go too far." "I know, you too," he replied, before walking away, leaving her alone in the darkness. As she slowly walked down the hallway, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her. She stopped in front of a slightly open door, hesitating. Curiosity drove her to peek inside the room. What she saw left her perplexed. The room was filled with furniture covered in white sheets, as if waiting for someone. But there was something else. A dusty old box of photographs rested on top of a table. "Maybe this can help us," she murmured to herself, cautiously approaching. With trembling hands, she opened the box and began to flip through the photos. The images showed a young woman dressed in white, with a radiant smile that contrasted with the mansion's gloomy atmosphere. Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. "Who are you?" she whispered, holding a photo where the young woman was dancing in a decorated ballroom. Her expression was melancholic, as if she were trapped between two worlds. Then, a photo fell from the bottom of the box, and as she picked it up, Emily froze. It was a picture of Lucas, but he was standing next to the young woman. The two seemed close, as if they shared a secret. "This can't be real," she thought, her heart racing. How could Lucas be connected to her? Meanwhile, on the other side of the corridor, Mark was trying to open a door that resisted his efforts. "Lucas, if you're in there, answer!" he shouted, but his voice was swallowed by the darkness. Suddenly, a new melody began to play on the record player, the same hypnotic song that had started the party. The music reverberated through the walls, and Emily, consumed by curiosity and fear, felt compelled to return to where the record player was. "Mark!" she shouted, but received no answer. Panic engulfed her, and she began to run, the sound of the song echoing in her mind, each note pulsing like a warning. When she reached the room where the record player was, the atmosphere changed again. The music seemed more intense, as if it were alive, and a feeling of panic gripped her chest. "No, no, no," Emily muttered, looking around. Mark's voice echoed in her mind, and she remembered his warning. "Beware of the song." The music grew louder, and the air around her began to vibrate in a strange way. The record player, which had seemed just an old object, now pulsed with an almost palpable energy. Desperate, Emily turned to leave, but the door she had entered was now firmly closed. "Mark, where are you?" she screamed, but only the music answered. The feeling that something was about to happen pushed her to the brink of hysteria. The music continued, weaving a dark enchantment around her, while the image of the young woman dancing haunted her, as if calling her to join in an eternal dance. The atmosphere in Willow Creek's mansion, now steeped in palpable tension, seemed to pulse with the music that still echoed off the dusty walls. Jake, Emily, and Mark exchanged worried glances, feeling that the situation was growing increasingly ominous. The idea of splitting up to search for Lucas wasn't appealing, but the urgency forced them to act. "We need to find Lucas. Let's split up into groups. Mark, you come with me upstairs. Emily, stay here and try to call for him. If anything strange happens, scream," Jake said, his voice firm but with a slight tremor betraying his anxiety. "Be careful, Jake. I don't like this," Emily replied, still shaken by the memory of seeing Sarah disappear. "The music, it's changing something here, something we don't understand. We have to take the risk. If the song is connected to what happened, we need to find out more about it," Mark interjected, trying to calm the tension. "Let's go, Jake. We need to hurry." The two climbed the creaking stairs, while Emily hesitated, listening to the music that danced in the air like an invisible thread pulling at her. With one last look at her friends, she decided that standing still wasn't an option. "Lucas!" she called out, her voice echoing down the hallway. "Where are you?" Upstairs, Jake and Mark encountered a long, dark hallway, their flashlights casting distorted shadows on the walls. "Look," Mark pointed to a slightly open door. "Let's see if he's in there." Jake pushed the door open slowly, and a musty smell flooded the air. The room was empty except for an old, dust-covered desk. "Nothing here." "Let's check the next one," Jake said. But as he turned, a phrase scrawled on the wall caught his attention. "The song will bring pain." He read aloud, a chill running down his spine. "What does that mean?" Mark frowned. "It sounds like a warning. We need to get back and tell Emily." But before they could leave, the music intensified, as if responding to Jake's discovery. A shiver ran down Mark's spine, and he looked around, feeling that something was about to happen. "Jake, don't you feel that? Like something's watching us?" Meanwhile, downstairs, Emily continued calling for Lucas, her heart racing with each passing second. The music seemed to come from every corner of the mansion, and she began to feel that she wasn't alone. A dancing figure appeared in her peripheral vision, and when she turned, she saw the young woman in white, with a lost and sad look. "Sarah?" Emily called out, but the figure only ignored her, continuing to dance in a hypnotic rhythm. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice trembling. The woman spun slowly, her eyes fixed on Emily, and the room seemed to spin with her. A sense of panic began to invade Emily's mind. "Get out of here! You need to leave!" she shouted, but the woman only smiled, as if inviting her to join her in the dance. Meanwhile, Jake and Mark descended the stairs quickly, alerted by Emily's scream. "Emily! What happened?" Jake asked, but she was paralyzed, hypnotized by the spectral figure. She wants me to follow her," Emily murmured, her gaze distant. I can't. Mark, realizing the situation, pulled Emily back. "Don't follow her, it's an illusion," he shouted. But the music seemed to envelop them, intensifying the delirium. In a moment of despair, Sarah, who had stayed behind, appeared, but her expression was one of terror. "Emily, no! Don't look at her!" But it was too late. The young dancer reached out, and with a final scream of horror, Emily disappeared into thin air as if she had never been there. Jake and Mark looked at each other, their faces pale and disbelieving, the echo of Emily's scream still reverberating off the mansion's walls. No, this can't be happening," Jake murmured, feeling reality crumble around him. "We need to find Lucas. Now." The music continued to play, and the mansion seemed to move, as if it were alive, guarding secrets that shouldn't be revealed. The feeling of being watched grew stronger, and the darkness around them closed in as the search. Jake, Emily, and Mark were surrounded by ancient shelves, filled with dusty books that seemed to hold old secrets. The dim light of a flashlight flickered, casting dancing shadows on the library walls as the three friends tried to make sense of the desperate situation they found themselves in. The weight of Lucas and Sarah's absence hung in the air like a dark shroud. "We need to find out more about this song," said Jake, his voice firm but with a slight tremor betraying his anxiety. "If this curse is real, maybe we can break it." "Look, over here!" Emily shouted, pointing to a book that seemed older than the others. The cover was worn, but the golden letters gleamed under the flashlight's light. Mark approached and carefully opened the volume. The pages were yellowed, but the handwriting was still legible. "It's a diary. It looks like it belongs to Clara," Mark said, skimming the lines. "She talks about a lost love, a young man who promised to return but never did." "This could be the key," Jake said, leaning in to read alongside Mark. "She made a pact to bind her soul to the song, waiting for him to return. But what does this have to do with Lucas and Sarah?" "Maybe the song is trying to attract souls that are similar to hers," Emily suggested, growing more distressed. "That would explain why we all feel this strange connection to the music." Suddenly, the melody began to play again, louder and more intense than before. Ethan dared to ask, his voice sounding firmer than he felt. "You shouldn't be here," said the figure, his voice low and drawn out. "What you're looking for is buried in more than just walls." "We're here for Clara," Ethan said, adopting a defiant tone. "She needs help. What do you know about this?" The man stepped forward, revealing a pale face marked by suffering. "Clara, she's one of the lost. What you're doing here could bring consequences. The rituals weren't just an echo of the past, they still live. Rituals? Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Are you talking about the cult that disappeared with so many children? Yes, the man replied, his gaze penetrating as if reading their souls. But it's not just a cult. It's a call, a cycle that repeats. If you don't leave, you might become part of it. Ethan felt a growing anger. We're not going to let that happen. Clara needs us, and we need her. We can't just walk away now. The hooded man hesitated, as if struggling with his own demons. You're fools. You don't understand what you're facing. Clara isn't just an imaginary friend. She's a manifestation of something that shouldn't be awakened. As silence hung in the air, Ethan looked at his friends, who seemed as frightened as he was. But he also saw the determination in their eyes. They couldn't back down. They needed to face the truth, no matter how dark it was. We're not giving up, Ethan declared, his voice now stronger. Jake, do you think Lucas could be in danger? Emily asked, glancing nervously around. No doubt. And if the song is really the key, we need to figure out how to break the curse before it's too late, Jake replied, determined. They reached a hallway that led to a locked door covered in cobwebs. Here, he could be in there, said Mark, pounding on the door. Lucas, he shouted, hoping he could hear. But the only response was the echo of their voices. The music was growing louder and louder, as if it were trying to silence them. We need to get in, Jake insisted, forcing the doorknob. The door groaned but gave way, revealing a dark, dusty room filled with furniture covered in white sheets. Lucas, Emily called again, hope shining in her eyes. But the only response was the whisper of the song, which seemed to grow more intense with every passing second. Jake looked at his friends, determination in his gaze. If the song is connected to Clara, we need to find a way to confront her. There must be something here that will help us understand how to free her and, at the same time, save Lucas. As the music echoed, the three friends prepared to face the unknown, aware that time was running out and everything depended on their actions. Lucas's fate and the truth behind the song were about to be revealed, and the old mansion seemed to whisper secrets that had been waiting to be uncovered. Jake and Emily exchanged glances, Lucas's message still pulsing in their minds like a persistent echo. We're racing against time, Emily murmured, her voice trembling slightly. We need to find that basement. He could be in danger. Jake nodded, determination growing within him. They moved away from the library table, where the old, dusty pages of books seemed to whisper dark secrets. With a keen eye, Jake began to explore the library's walls, looking for any sign of a secret passage. Here! He exclaimed, tapping his hand against a part of the wall that felt slightly loose. Emily approached, her heart racing, and together they began to push. The wall shifted slightly, revealing a dark gap that emitted a chilling cold. Let's go, Jake said, his voice firm but tinged with hesitation. If Lucas is down there, we can't waste time. With one last glance at the library, dimly lit by the faint light of a lamp, they ventured through the passage. Darkness enveloped them like a heavy cloak, and the air grew thicker as they descended. The basement was a stifling space, filled with dancing shadows that moved to the rhythm of the music still echoing in their minds. The song seemed to intensify, as if it were alive, wrapping them in a hypnotic melody that made their hearts beat in time with the rhythm. Lucas! Jake shouted, his voice reverberating off the stone walls. Where are you? At the far end of the basement, a figure was huddled, almost invisible in the darkness. Jake and Emily ran towards it, and when the flashlight's beam finally illuminated Lucas's face, they stopped, horrified. He was sitting on the floor, his eyes vacant and fixed on a distant point, as if in a deep trance. Lucas, Emily called, gently touching his shoulder. There was no response. The song still played, and something in the melody seemed to hold Lucas captive. He's not here, Jake murmured, despair growing. He's trapped in the song. We have to do something. He looked around, searching for an exit, a plan. Maybe the only way to free him is to sing the song back. If Clara is trying to free herself, maybe this will work. Emily frowned. But you don't know the lyrics. What if it doesn't work? What if we make things worse? Fear was clear in her voice, but the urgency of the situation left them with few options. Jake took a deep breath, the music still reverberating in his ears. "I have to try," Jake said, his voice firm. He knelt beside Lucas, holding his hand. "Lucas, if you can hear me, I'm going to try. I'm going to bring you back." He began to hum the melody, his voice hesitant but growing stronger as the song took shape. The melody reverberated off the basement walls, and as he sang, he felt a strange energy fill the space. As Jake sang, Clara's figure began to appear in the shadows, her ethereal form slowly dancing. "Let him go, Jake," she whispered, her voice a soft echo. "He is my love. The cycle must be completed." Jake's heart pounded as he heard those words, the realization that Lucas was indeed Clara's lost love manifesting in his mind. "Lucas!" Jake called again, his voice now filled with emotion. "You have to come back. Clara is here, and she wants you back." He continued to sing, the melody flowing from his lips like a spell. Slowly, Lucas began to react, his eyes blinking as if waking from a long sleep. "Jake?" Lucas murmured, confusion evident on his face. "What's happening?" The music began to fade, and with it, Clara's presence. Jake felt a surge of hope